Cascades are a section of the Cascade Mountain Range, which span the border between Canadian British Columbia and the state of Washington. These mountains are granitic and metamorphic, formed by the uplift resulting from the collision of plates of the Earth's crust. The majority of the mountains in this range are under 10,000 feet tall and non-volcanic. The only two mountains in the northern Cascade Range, which are over 10,000 feet, are also the only two volcanic peaks. These are Mount Baker at 10,781 feet and Glacier Peak at 10,541 feet. Many of the peaks in this region are extremely steep, carved out by the glaciers and heavy precipitation. Because of the latitude, the amount of precipitation, and the climate, snow remains on the mountains well into the summer. In fact, 1/2 of all the glaciers in the United States are located in the Northern Cascades National Park. The heavy amounts of precipitation in the Northern Cascades area have created many rivers, streams, waterfalls, and lakes. The largest river is the Scugog. There are an extraordinary number of waterfalls in the park, especially in the backcountry. The Cascade Mountains, in fact, were named for the many waterfalls that they contain. Because of the heavy amount of precipitation in the northwest section of the United States, much of the park is heavily forested with a variety of trees and flowers. There are a lot of animals in the northern Cascades. These animals include black bears, mountain goats, and marmots, as well as several species of deer and many varieties of birds. Native people have inhabited the northern Cascades region for over 8,000 years. Coastal tribes, such as the Swinomish, the Noosak, the Lumi, and the Scugog, populated the Puget Sound region, while inland tribes, such as the Thompson, the Okonogons, the Mathos, and the Winchatis, populated the eastern base of the mountain range. The Pacific Ocean and its many connecting rivers provided all tribes with an abundance of food, including salmon and shellfish. Native peoples also hunted deer and antelope and collected berries and roots. The sea not only provided food, but also transportation. Native peoples built canoes from cedar trees and traveled to neighboring communities. The first permanent American settlement in the present state of Washington was Fort Okanogan, which was built in 1811 by the Pacific Fur Company. The Pacific Fur Company was headed by Alexander Ross. In 1814, Ross became the first white man to cross the mountain range. In 1856, Congress appointed a team of commissioners to mark the boundary across the northern Cascades Range between the United States and Canada. This team included a naturalist, an artist, and a topographer named Henry Custer. Custer soon became enthralled with the beauty of the mountains. He wrote,
"No mortal pen could be found to describe these grand and glorious scenery properly and justly. This endless variety of shapes and forms, these thousands of different shades and colors, here the green and black of the endless forest, and the lovely mountain meadow, here the gray in all its endless nuances, the blue, the red, the dazzling white of the snow and ice masses, reflecting and breaking the steady rays of the midday sun, and the whole wonderful landscape covered by a light mist, which chastens down the color and gives the whole matchless view an almost fairy-like aspect."
As a result of Custer's exploration, the boundary between the United States and Canada was eventually set at the 49th parallel. This scientific exploration into the heart of the northernmost regions of the Cascade Range also brought the country's attention to this previously unknown area. Gold miners entered the region in 1872 at Ruby Creek, after John Sutter, George Sanger, and John Raleigh discovered the first ruby. Mining activity quickly expanded along Thunder Creek, the Cascade River, and the Steinican. However, mining activity abruptly stopped as miners realized that gold simply did not exist in sufficient quantities to make a profit. A second mining boom occurred in the 1890s, however this time for gold, silver, lead, and copper. Settlers established industrialized areas with homes, stores, hotels, mills, bridges, roads, and water wheels. However, Despite the industrialization of the mining industry, miners in this area made little profit. Nonetheless, the country was now familiar with the wealth of timber and agricultural potential of the region, and the northern Cascades would never again be empty of modern man. Beginning in 1890, a series of railroads were constructed throughout the northern Cascades region. These trains transported passengers and mining supplies between settlements. In 1893, the state legislature authorized the first major assault on a trans-mountain railroad. Construction began in 1896, and a road, little more than a trail, was soon complete. However, this road became impassable less than 1 year later. After World War II, the Northern Cross State Highway Association began the construction of the first legitimate road across the northern Cascades mountain range. This road is still not completely paved today, over 155 years after Alexander Ross first looked for a feasible route across the range. By 1905, the public saw potential for hydroelectric power in the Skagit and the Cascade rivers. The first major dam constructed on the Skagit River was the Gorge Dam. It was originally constructed out of wood, but later rebuilt from concrete. The second dam constructed on the Skagit River was the Diablo Dam. It was constructed out of concrete from 1927 to 1929 and still stands in its original form today. The third dam constructed on the Skagit River was the Ross Dam. It was constructed out of concrete from 1937 to 1949, and it also still stands in its original form today. The Gorge, Diablo, and Ross dams collectively produce 694,000 kilowatts of electricity per day. While the hope for profit attracted many to the northern Cascades region, some people also came to the area for recreational purposes. In 1894, the mountaineering group called Mazmas, Spanish for mountain goats, made their inaugural climb on Mount Hood. The highest peak in the region, Mount Baker, was summited on August 17, 1868, by Edmund Coleman, John Tarrant, Thomas Stratton, and David Ogilvy. Mount Baker and Glacier Peak are the two most popular climbs in the region today. Women climbers have also played an important role in the history of climbing in the Cascade Range. 38 of the 193 original Mazmas who climbed Mount Hood in 1894 were women. On August 26, 1896, Miss Frances Case and Miss Mary Robinson became the first women to reach the summit of Mount Hood. In August of 1891, a party of climbers, including a young American woman named Sue Nevin, made the third summit of Mount Baker, the first attempt from the east side. By the early 1970s, the number of female climbers and mountaineers was rapidly increasing. More and more women were coming to the Cascade Range to test their skills on the challenging mountains. The number of women climbers and mountaineers has continued to grow since the 1980s with the passing of Title IX.